Welcome to the Fantasy Football Prophet podcast, hosted by Craig Phillips and Jeff Torrey. Visit us at fantasyfootballprophet.com. And now your hosts, Craig and Jeff.
Welcome everyone to the Fantasy Football Prophet podcast. I'm Craig Phillips, joined as always by Jeff Torrey. And today we got a little week 2 recap. All the games are now done for Sunday. We get to go through everything, all the stars, all the disappointments, and there's quite a few disappointments this week, and injuries as well. Actually, the injury situation is getting it's already worrisome after only 2 weeks. I mean, and so many players we don't really know yet what the situations are, like Jordan Howard there for you, Jeff?
Yeah, that, in a way, I hope it is an injury a little bit, just because then I can blame his poor performance on that. But, so his arm was in a sling after the game. But, once again, let's just talk about just piling on. Like, Jordan Howard owners, including myself, have already, have to worry about, the quarterback situation, the poor offense, Cohen stealing carries, and now if it's injuries as well, it's like everything is stacked up against this guy. And, it's showing. Obviously, he had a very, very poor game today. And, we took it on the chin. So,
yeah, it's just that offense in Chicago is just, I think, pretty bad. And I don't know if either Howard or Cohen is even going to be in standard leagues for sure. It's going to be a worry. Cohen can have some value in PPR, but he's not. I mean, people made him already wasted their number one waiver claim on him last week and spent big bucks and, with a fab budget. I think that might have been a mistake because I think he's going to be good, but he's going to have these games like this. He's probably going to have at least half of his games are going to be these 4-point games in a standard league. Obviously PPR, it's a lot better, but it's still it's not amazing in PPR. It's good. It's okay, but it wasn't probably enough to waste your top waiver claim on, which a lot of people did that. I think there's still going to be one coming. We just don't know what it is yet and who it's going to be, but there's always somebody. And I think there'll be somebody better than Cohen, maybe. But hopefully for your sake, Jeff, that Howard can come back and he's healthy and something's, a little bit better than this. Hopefully we'll find out some more stuff in the next couple days here.
Yeah, you and me both.
He came into the game with some injury concerns there that showed up, so it could just be a continuation of that, and maybe they'll just it wouldn't shock me if they sat him a week or two to get him healthy if he's just not right. That could be part of what happened there. He was so good last year. That's the thing. It's like I was down on Howard a little bit because of how bad the offense was. But, he was so good last year that he shouldn't be this bad. I didn't expect these kind of numbers. I was expecting maybe 40 yards, 50 yards, not, 10? Not even?
Yeah, I know. And the thing is, Cohen couldn't get it going either. The rushing in general was so terrible that you're wondering if it was the line, if it was the certain scheme they're doing. Is it the fact that they know Glennon's not going to beat him and he has no one to throw to, so they can just stack it? Like, I'm wondering if it's just too much to overcome.
Yep.
But I don't know. There's so many things that you can point out in the Bears offense right now that has to be fixed that it becomes difficult to kind of figure out what exactly is going on with them. And then in turn, Howard. But, we'll hopefully we'll find out a little bit more in the coming days, and we'll be able to figure out what we can do with his spot, especially for my fellow Howard owners.
Well, another team that actually the offense is surprising me is the Broncos. Trevor Siemian, C.J. Anderson, kind of unexpected stars right now, I would say. C.J. Anderson was we liked him, but we still liked him as what? A back-end running back 2. Maybe, he was in the 15 to 20 range for us in our ranks. Mm-hmm. That's about as high as he got, but that was actually higher than most people had him, it felt like. And yet he puts up 27.4 points in standard off 25 carries, 118 yards and a touchdown, caught a touchdown. And Siemian, 30.6 points and follows up his 26.7 last week. There might be something there. I don't know for sure. He's a second-year quarterback now. Is there any chance you're thinking of playing him at all over maybe Kirk Cousins, who's disappointed you?
No, right? Tell you the truth, it's hard to say no right now. The guy is done wonderfully. And I mean, the whole thing with the Broncos offense is we did like C.J. Anderson more than most. We weren't sure exactly what the split was going to be like.
Yep.
But obviously he was amazing. And if you have that running game going, it's going to make life a lot easier for Simeon, which it did today.
Yep.
And, not to mention, he already had great wide receivers. So the whole offense was kind of predicated on how far can Simeon take them. And, myself included, I thought maybe he was going to be probably mid quarterback. Like he was going to be good enough, a field general. They were going to be able to win games with that defense. But him playing this well changes pretty much everything. And I think for that, I mean, his numbers too. So if he can put the ball in the right place, his wide receivers will make plays.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, he, especially a bye week fill-in, but if he does this 1-2 more weeks, he could be a legitimate quarterback. And that's good to see too, because I guarantee there's people out there that drafted a quarterback that hasn't really gotten his feet under him yet. I mean, you mentioned Kirk Cousins, which I was a big proponent of. Cam Newton, even Russell Wilson has been struggling. So there's Mariota. He hasn't been able to throw too many touchdowns quite yet. But Simeon's outplaying all these guys.
Yeah.
So it'll be really interesting when it comes down to the waiver wire.
Yep. Definitely not ready to pick him up even or start playing him yet. But if he does it one more week, it's something to watch, something to look at. Because, this stuff happens. Sometimes these quarterbacks step up and we didn't quite expect it. So I'm going to keep watching. But I'm not going to recommend a pickup yet. But, I would actually probably recommend a pickup over Andy Dalton at this point. I'd drop Andy Dalton and pick up Simeon and play him. I think I'm done with Dalton.
I bet Simeon is actually, he's probably available in most leagues still. And I bet he's probably one of the better quarterbacks you can get now. So honestly, if you do have someone like Cam Newton, who we were down on, already,
yep.
and, it continues to look like that offense is a work in progress. Simeon might be someone you can get for real cheap, throw him on your bench and play him until Cam kind of, finds his way again.
Yep. No, I agree. All right, another guy here, Todd Gurley. I think he's actually a pretty good NFL running back. I don't know if you saw that hurdle he did over the defender to get into the end zone on the one play. He's actually had a couple hurdles over defenders in the game. I just think he's been stuck on a bad team and a bad offense, but he's starting to shine a little bit. And still, it's not like amazing numbers, but his talent is showing through as he get 23.6 points this week in standard, 88 rushing yards, 48 receiving yards, a touchdown both. That's pretty impressive. I'm really liking what I'm seeing from Gurley right now.
Yeah, absolutely. It was wonderful that we can finally say, look, we told you so, because I feel like every week we're like, he's a better back than this. Like, he's a better back. His team sucks. And finally, he 16 carries, 88 yards, a touchdown, like you said. He looked really, really good. And catching the ball is not usually his thing. So it's really good to see him having just 3 receptions, 50 yards, and a touchdown to kind of, boost him into the, second overall running back this week so far?
Yeah, I believe so.
So,
yep.
It's great to see. I think that passing offense needs to come a long way. But obviously it's doing its job enough to take off just enough pressure so Gurley can show his athleticism again.
All right, after Gurley, we might as well talk about who ended up being the third running back so far with only one more game left in standard leagues. It's Ty Montgomery, who ended up with 23 points in standard. He only ran the ball 10 times for 35 yards. He did pick up a touchdown there, though. Caught 6 passes for 75 yards and a touchdown. I know Green Bay was in catch-up mode there, throwing the ball around to Montgomery, too. But still, Jeff, you did rank him top 10 this week, and he's going to be top 5. So...
Yeah, I thought it was going to be a high-scoring game, and it took a moment to get there. And I know if you listen to our other podcasts, me and Craig always have one bet a week, and ours was Jordy Nelson versus Antonio Brown, and I thought I had it locked up, and then Jordy goes and gets hurt in the first quarter. But anyway, the Packers in general did really, really well. And it's really great to see Montgomery catching so many balls out of the backfield, because you knew he's not going to be that grind them out kind of back. He's just, he's just not. But he got a touchdown, which is wonderful. They didn't give it to Aaron Rodgers. So you're starting to kind of see the role that Ty Montgomery is going to have. And it's looking really, really good.
Yeah, and even when Green Bay loses like this, their offense is good enough that they're going to play catch up and they're going to throw the ball around and pick up points for you. I mean, because Rodgers did have a down week. He only had 22.5 in the loss, but Adams stepped up a bit. He had to with the injuries to Nelson, and then Cobb went down there with a shoulder injury, it looks like, too. So at this point, if those are significant at all, we could be down to just Devontae Adams as their number one wide receiver next week. That's going to get interesting. With what, Geronimo Allison, number 2? If that is the case, Montgomery's going to do he's going to be leaned on heavily.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. And that's a wonderful thing about having a converted wide receiver in the backfield is you can do a ton of great stuff, and Aaron Rodgers will be covered. But, yeah, that will be definitely something to keep track of because you could get a lot of value off of the bench then for these waiver picks.
And with Montgomery, this shows the value of him this year. And he doesn't have to do much running the ball necessarily to be a great fantasy option. He's only carried the ball for 89 yards this year in 2 games. And yet he had a 15-point game and a 23-point game. So he doesn't need the rushing yards to be good. So if he ever starts picking up these rushing yards, it's going to be really good. So something to watch for. All right, number 4. How about the number 4 running back? We'll just keep going down there. It's Kareem Hunt again. 22.9 points in standard, 13 carries for 89 yards and 2 touchdowns. He pretty much did nothing until, about midway through the third quarter, I think it was. He was held. He had under 10 yards at that point. Then he broke out a 51-yarder. So that offensive line gave him a huge hole there. So even in these games like this where he does nothing, one big run and he becomes fantasy relevant and then throws in a, goal line touchdown later on. I kind of wish I would have drafted him.
Yeah. I mean, if you have the bulk of the carries like Kareem Hunt is going to get, especially, with Ware out of the picture, it looks like this is what we can expect. He's probably going to get 70 to 100 yards, and then, you hope obviously a touchdown comes with it. He just looks like he's going to be very dependable and a very good player. Yeah. I mean, you wish you knew about injuries ahead of time, but, I mean, what can you do?
Another running back who actually is going to be the 5th running back right now is Chris Thompson from Washington. He ended up with 22.6 points in standard leagues off 3 carries for 77 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also caught 3 balls. Didn't get any touchdowns there. But now Rob Kelly went out with an injury. P. Ryan played a lot and ran the ball 21 times, but only for 67 yards. He just doesn't seem like he's that good. I mean, I guess I could say at this point. I think if Kelly's going to miss some time, Chris Thompson's going to get a lot of work. He might actually pick up a few more carries, and if he does, great. But I think he's one of the most undervalued players there's out there. No one talks about Chris Thompson, yet he's had 2 double-digit games in a row. He's only had 6 carries, but he has 2 double-digit games in a row.
I know. It's pretty crazy, and he's the one that kind of jumps off out of the stat sheet with this week, especially when it comes to waivers. I know his name is going to be very, very up there. I mean, none of that backfield really grabbed the starting role. Rob Kelly, obviously with the injury as well, but him and P. Ryan, they were just so. And then Chris Thompson comes out here and shows that he can be a big play threat. And he's done it without getting, that many touches. So that he's going to get a heavier dose next week, whether or not Rob Kelly is, healthy. So he's going to be one of these guys that if he can do it one more week, he's going to steal a major, portion of those carries going forward because, whoever can produce is going to get those.
And then another pass catching back type, Buck Allen. He had 16.1 points this week. He did have 14 carries for 66 yards. That's never going to be what he's going to get all his points for. We did catch 5 balls for 35 yards and a touchdown. I think that's where his value is going to come in too. And if he does that, I think he looked like the better back than Terrence West today. And he carried the ball 6 more times than Terrence West did. So maybe it is going to be Buck Allen's backfield, and I should have listened to my own advice a couple weeks ago and picked him up.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I like this guy. I don't think he's going to be like a superstar by any means, but I think with Woodhead out, he is going to be a solid play. Like a running back 3 kind of moving forward, flex position guy. He has a lot of upside for what he does and what that offense does. So I think touchdowns will be hit or miss for him definitely. But if they continue giving him the passing yards, he's going to have solid.
All right, some wide receivers we should talk about. Michael Crabtree caught 6 passes for 80 yards, but the big thing is 3 touchdowns. Maybe we were underrating him, putting him around in our ranks. He typically ended up being around 20th in our preseason ranks, just because you always expect Amari Cooper to start taking over some of that work, maybe more and more of it, but it's just not happening. I mean, Carr seems to really like Crabtree, and I don't think that's going away. And if he can get the touchdowns, I mean, he's going to be up there, and I think he's just slightly undervalued.
Yeah, I mean, what can you say? It was 3 touchdowns. He looked for him, in red zone. He looked for him pretty much all day. I mean, he did it off of 6 receptions too, so half of those going for touchdowns. Kind of an anomaly, but at the same time, it's not like we haven't seen this from Crabtree before. I mean, like I said, that's definitely going to be the height of his season, I assume, as far as TDs and things like that go. But it doesn't mean
I would think so.
But it doesn't mean he won't catch a lot more, and it doesn't mean that he couldn't catch 2 in a game. And if this continues where he's working this well with Carr, I don't know. Do you get more excited about Crabtree, or does this actually make you worry about Cooper? Like, which one does it do more?
I think it makes me more excited probably about Crabtree in a way, because I think he's just more the consistency is going to be there. I think he's going to be good every week. Cooper, I mean, and I guess I would worry about Cooper a little bit too, because he's just not stepping up to me what I thought he would. Like, I don't want to see these down weeks like he's had, like this week, where he's going to go out there and give you 33 yards, and that's it. It's just, I don't like, even last week, 5 catches for 62. He salvaged it with a touchdown, and then 4 for 33. That's not what a number 1 receiver does back-to-back weeks like that. You can do it once. I mean, doing it twice like this is just, it worries me a bit. Maybe he's not going to step up and be that guy. I think it's there yet, but if we see this for too long, it's gonna worry me a bit. And I think we might have overrated him a little bit.
Yeah, I think the guy has all the talent in the world, but I mean, you're seeing it. Crabtree is just outproducing him. I mean, straight up right now. So, like I said, it's week 2, but at the same time, I'm with you. It does make you reconsider your rankings and how we've been looking at it.
Yeah. All right, some guys we won't talk about too long, just because they, this is what they do. Mike Evans, 7 catches, 93 yards and touchdown. Pretty much what we expected there. Alshon, it was nice to see him get 7 catches, 92 yards and a touchdown. I think that's what he's going to be. I think that's about what we expected, and it's nice to see it early on from him already. And even in a tough matchup at Kansas City, it was good to see. I think he's going to be good. And people, I think, were underrating him too. Like, we always had him a little bit higher. And I think he's going to be a really good player. And then how about one more? Keenan Allen, Jeff. 9 catches, 100 yards. No touchdowns, but I think that's what Keenan Allen does, and starting to come around already. Even in these 2 weeks have just been okay, and he got 9.5 and 10 points. Just coming back into it. Do you expect an uptick in this? Or, I mean, hopefully this is the floor, but I think this is kind of where his floor is.
Yeah, and, I think he's going to catch more touchdowns, obviously. He hasn't, been able to yet, but 9 catches for 100 yards is a great game, and especially if you have PPR. This is kind of what I was talking about. He's great in both. I think touchdowns will come, but, I mean, if he did this every game, I'd be totally fine with it. And, just once again, that offense looks like it's starting to click. And there's a lot of weapons on it, and we could probably go into in-depth about every single one. But I would like to point out that Gates finally caught that touchdown that he needed. So maybe he can get the F up out of here. So Hunter Henry, which looked good, can finally get the...
Yeah, Hunter Henry did step up a little bit there. A little better this week. Yeah, people were rating Hunter Henry just... I saw him not even in the top 25 in people's rankings for this week.
Yeah, it was, 1 week will kill people's value. It goes up and down so quickly. But, it looked like a lot of the major kind of contributors of people that were ranked very high finally kind of came back this week. And it looked a lot more like what you thought it would, right? You have Devontae Adams was up there. Martavis Bryant caught a touchdown. He did really well for the most part. 3 catches only, but still 91 yards and a touchdown, what we thought. Big playability.
Yep.
Elshon, Mike Evans is back up there. So, and then Dez with a touchdown as well. So, and Julio looked good as well. So, I mean, it's one of those things. There's definitely other people that were scattered throughout, which we probably will talk about here in a second. But I don't know. Is this kind of one of those things where you can look at this and say, hey, like, week one is week one, but it's over the course of a year that these numbers kind of come out. And does this kind of give you a better vision of what it's going to look like moving forward?
It's starting to. I mean, once you see the guys step up a little bit in the second week, they're gonna have maybe a little bit up and down. But like Dez, I think getting 11.9 points in standard against Denver at Denver, that's pretty solid. That's something I don't even know if we expected that necessarily. I mean, he's had 2 really, really tough matchups in a row, and yet he's okay. But he has one more tough one next week against the Cardinals with Patrick Peterson there. I think people are going to be like Dez is one of those guys that people are going to be overreacting completely if he has if he has a bad week. I think he's going to turn around and be great later on in the season. So like that's one of those guys that's just kind of up and down. Do you see that 16 targets for Dez too? That's crazy.
Thank goodness, because they could not. I mean, this was the first game where they just couldn't get the running game going. It was very strange to see, and Denver just dominated.
Yep. Well, I just tried we talked last week about having people not overreact to the numbers for 1 week. So I hope they've listened because some of these guys have stepped back up a little bit. But what about Jarvis Landry, who didn't play last week, 13 catches for 78 yards. That's Jarvis Landry right there, isn't it? Even with Jay Cutler being as the quarterback, it doesn't matter who the quarterback is, I guess. Jarvis Landry is going to be Jarvis Landry. So in standard, it's just...
Really interesting to see. I didn't think that he was going to be able to do the same kind of thing with Cutler, or not to the same degree. But he caught a crap ton of balls. I mean, maybe that's just the type of player he is, and maybe that's definitely going to help Cutler out. It's got to.
And that just shows his extreme differences in standard and PPR. Because in standard, he only scores you 7.1 points, but in PPR he gets you 20.1. Like the difference in how good of a player he is in standard versus PPR is just, it's crazy to me. I mean, you look at somebody like he scored 7.1, and you go and get Martavis Bryant, who in standard scored 15.8, but you turn that around and Jarvis outscores him in PPR. It's crazy. So they just got to know that Jarvis Landry might not be a great standard option, but PPR, he is still probably one of the best.
Yeah, he's going to catch a lot of balls.
All right, some other guys. Tom Brady stepped up again, so that's just Tom Brady. Don't have to really worry too much about that. Threw him over to Gronk, of course, 6 for 116 and a touchdown, but he goes down with an injury, so gotta watch that. I mean, that's just a groin injury. That's just what Gronk seems to do.
Yeah, I mean,
so good when he's healthy.
I know the best weapon you could possibly have on your fantasy team. When healthy, you just know, he's going to miss games. It's just what's going to happen. He's going to be hampered. But him and Brady, I mean, my God, man, when they're clicking, It is just fun to watch.
Yeah, well, if Gronk's out at all for some reason, I mean, Hogan might still be getting those passes. I don't know if they'll step up. Dwayne Allen will step up at tight end, but Hogan was 5 for 78 and a touchdown. It's a pretty solid day without Amendola there too. Good. Yep. So I think it's I think Hogan's going to have that kind of value. He's not going to do it every week, but he's going to have good weeks like that. How about Travis Kelce came back this week and played like he should? 8 for 103 and a touchdown. Last year he was getting those 8 for 103s. He wasn't necessarily getting the touchdown. So if he can add that to it, he's going to challenge Gronk if Gronk's healthy for the number 1 spot this year.
Oh yeah, and this is after week 1. Everyone, it was a little bit of a freak out moment where everyone was like, man, I spent a lot of money on certain players and they didn't produce. But, definitely in the tight end position, that wasn't necessarily the case. Gronk came back, did it. Kelce came back, did it. And then there's a few others that were just pretty decent. Ertz, once again, Walker. Witten, by the way. Is this a resurgence? Is this something that we should actually look forward to? Or you think this is just the beginning of the year where he's more of a safety blanket and they haven't been able to get both the running and the passing game, on track at the same time.
I'm wondering if this was more of a. I mean, he's had 2 really good weeks in a row, though. I can't say just this week. He had 13 targets this week, and Dez had 16. It was just they were down and needed to pass the ball maybe, but 2 really good weeks in a row for Witten. I mean, it's kind of surprising to me. I thought he was just kind of going to be on the downslope, We weren't going to see anything of Jason Witten of old, but I'm interested actually in this now. I think he's going to be moving well up my ranks, but he'll probably show up and get a 2 for 10 or something next week. But that's how it works.
I think it's going to be a little more unpredictable, but all of a sudden, especially in PPR, after these past 2 weeks, where not only is he going for touchdowns, but he's actually getting targets that suggest that he's going to be a larger part of the offense than he was what it felt like last year. 10 receptions today for 97 yards. Not only standard, but PPR, both of them. This guy has to be in the consideration for, to jump over a ton of guys that we had in the top 10 already.
Yep. And, Delaney Walker, 12.2 points. He ran a touchdown in. He only caught 4 for 61. He ran that one in, so.
I feel like he's doing it just to spite you at this point.
Is this
Every time you talk shit about him, the guy comes out and scores again.
Yeah, he's what he is. At least Zach Ertz is continuing to play well. 5 for 97. I guess one of those, the big play he had was kind of a fluke, but still, I think we've been putting him up there as a top option all year, and I think he's continuing to do that. And then just some other random guys here that had good weeks that we're definitely going to need to see more from them to decide for sure it's going to keep going. J.J. Nelson, 5 catches, 120 yards, and touchdown. He had some flashes last year too, but this is also no John Brown out there, playing against a terrible Colts team. We're definitely going to need to see more.
Dude, the Colts are so bad.
They really are. They're just not good. I'll need to see. So anything that happens against the Colts, or even like the Saints at this point, anything that happens against those teams, I need to see it against a real team, a real defense before I, think it's sustainable, maybe.
Oh, without a doubt. And now it's like any, defensive wise, any team that's about to play the Colts, or definitely the Colts. Any team that's about to play them, definitely pick them up. I feel like they're the Browns of last year, where it doesn't matter who they are. It could be a very low team even, and you put them up against, and you're still going to get points because their offense cannot move the ball.
Another receiver had a decent game. Brandon Coleman, 4 catches, 82 yards, and a touchdown. Just want to bring him up because I like to talk about Brandon Coleman a little bit there. I think that's about his peak, though. That's not going to be much better than that. So you have to depend on a touchdown. Probably won't be there, but I did think he had more value than people were giving him credit for. He wasn't talked about at all before the season, and I think he can do okay for him. But we'll see what happens when Snead comes back in 2 weeks. I think that could change things. I think the Saints need Snead out there. They're just not quite getting it done.
Yeah. They need him and like an entire defense.
Jermaine Kearse caught 4 passes for 64 yards, and he got 2 touchdowns for the Jets, 18.4 points in standard, and yet I am never going to trust that. The Jets have not been good, and that's about only 4 catches. So people are going to be maybe looking to get Kearse. I can't trust that.
No, and that's the warning sign is the low amount of receptions that turn into, half of your receptions turning into touchdowns. Yep. That's not going to keep the trend up. But, there's not a whole lot out there. So if you wanted to take a chance on Kearse, I'm totally fine with it. But at the same time, don't go overboard on what you pay for.
All right, one last guy I got on my list here. Derrick Henry, solid game, 14 carries, 91 yards and touchdown after it looks like DeMarco Murray had a hamstring injury. So Henry steps up, and what we always thought would happen if Henry came into the game and took over for Murray, we always thought this is pretty much what would happen. So got to wait and see this Murray thing. And this was the issue, the worry we had about DeMarco Murray going into the season is it wouldn't surprise us at all if he got hurt. And looks like it happened already. I think he came into the season hurt.
Yeah.
And so.
Yeah, and the big question between that too is Murray, even though, say he comes back, right? And say he has to miss a game or two even, which wouldn't be a huge deal. But at the same time, having someone like Derrick Henry behind you, which can run the ball like he did today, which was phenomenal, you look, he comes back, and I guarantee it doesn't go back to the same old 80-20, that it was. I mean, my assumption would be if he runs this well, it's going to be more of a 50-50 split, which obviously anyone that owns Henry is rejoicing, and anyone that owns Murray is, cursing because they had to take him in that second round. But, that's going to be a very interesting kind of situation to look at. And the unfortunate part is I'm guessing Henry's not available in many leagues. But if he is, this is definitely a guy that should be on the top of your waiver list. Him and maybe two other people.
All right. How about the disappointments for the week here, Jeff? Other than Jordan Howard, who had...
God, man, I do have a couple.
Zeke, what about Zeke? Only 2.2 standard.
Yeah, I've never seen anyone shut this guy down like they did.
This has not happened.
I mean, you take it with a grain of salt, and I say that because obviously this is a very good defense they're going against. But as we spoke about, generally it's more of a passing defense where they can shut down wide receivers, and then a team runs wild on them, which is why us and every other, fantasy site out there had Zeke listed very high on their weekly rankings, because it just historically last year, going off of that, running backs slaughtered them. So I don't know. Is Denver that much better in the, stopping the run, or did Zeke just have an off game?
I think Denver might just be that good defensive wise. I think that's what this is going to be. And Dallas got down maybe early. They just couldn't do the same things as they would like to with Zeke. But I think that's an anomaly. I don't trust that this will happen again. But it never happened last year, which is where the worry comes in. And it's not just Zeke though. There's the top running backs aren't really producing, I guess, as much. I mean, I didn't originally have Le'Veon Bell on this list, but I could. I mean, he still scored 9.1, but he did it off 27 carries and 87 yards. So these surefire number one guys like Zeke and Bell aren't putting up massive numbers. It's surprising in a way. A little, it kind of worries me a bit, especially if you're the one who had to pick these guys. I mean, we just thought for sure these guys are just the top guys, no matter what. They're going to have big weeks every week, but again, it's fantasy football. I guess that's not the case.
No, and I tell you, I'm not sure what it was, but I don't know. I mean, it might turn into a situation where you can actually get these guys now. So if someone's willing to actually deal Bell, I'm still in this situation where, I'd have arms wide open for him. But, he still got 9 points.
Yeah, definitely.
It wasn't like he fell flat in his face. I mean, so it's one of those that even when he has a bad game, he can get you, almost double digits, which is still pretty good, obviously.
Yeah, if somebody for some reason is worried about it at all and wants to trade him, go get him. I think he's going to be perfectly fine. Both of these guys are going to be perfectly fine. And I think LeSean McCoy is going to be perfectly fine. You see McCoy, 4.3 points in standard this week, 12 carries for 9 yards. But you got some receiving yards to salvage it a little bit, but I didn't see that coming either.
No, yeah, he just had a poor game. They were in a very, very low-scoring game, and the unfortunate part about that is you think that would help him because he would get more carries, but he just didn't. So it was kind of an unusual game for how it unfolded.
And then another guy, Isaiah Crowell. I was starting to... I kind of cooled on Crowell as the preseason went on there, as we got closer to the season, and starting to wonder, why are we ranking him so high? Why is everybody ranking him so high? And I'm starting to wonder if that wasn't the case. Maybe he was ranked a little too high. He's only had 70 yards now in the season off 27 carries. And Cleveland's just still not good. They're not a good team. And they're not going to be able to they want to run the ball maybe with him, but I don't think they're going to be able to do it. I think that's the problem here.
Yeah.
And Crowell's going to suffer.
Yeah. I mean, it's very true. They did go against Baltimore, which, has usually pretty good defense. But when Kaiser really struggled. He got hurt. Yep. He had to come out for a second. When you're on a bad team and only get 10 touches, I mean, it's very difficult to turn those into points. So until they turn around a bit, I think it's going to be one of those situations where Corral probably does better against bad teams, bad defenses, and he might struggle a little more, or his team will, and then in turn he will. So it's one of those things. I thought he could overcome it because he pretty much did last year, right? I mean, they were terrible last year too, and he still put up good points. So there was no reason not to think that he couldn't do the same thing. But him and Jordan Howard are having a very difficult time overcoming their situation at the moment.
And then another player here who I think his team has realized what I've already realized. It's LeGarrette Blount's no good. And I think the Eagles realized that and decided not to give him any carries at all today. So there's that. I think everyone's starting to realize that, and I'm happy we both ranked him very, very low in our preseason ranks. We kind of, I think, came around on that. And looks like the Eagles have too, but I don't know what the Eagles are doing with their run game. Smallwood's not doing anything. It's Sproles getting the majority of the work. It's their running situation is pretty ugly there.
Yeah, I don't know where it's going to go. I don't know what they're going to do. Sproles got 10 carries, only 4 targets in the passing game. So maybe they're going to try to just use him as much as possible because they actually trust him, and then divvy out some of the between the tackle work to the rest of the guys. But the fact that Blount didn't get anything is pretty shocking to me, because even at least in short yardage situations, he has to be somewhat useful. So obviously there's something there that they're not liking at all.
Yep. All right, Jeff, you got any other major disappointments that I'm
man,
missing? There's quite a few wide receiver disappointments this week. But
actually, there's a couple. First of all, once again, Mixon. I know his name is going to come up a lot. People draft him very high. 4.1 in standard this week. I think his is going to be a developing one. Delvin Cook. Obviously, you wonder about that one, but obviously without Bradford in there, obviously it hurts the whole offense.
Yeah.
So us or everyone, including us, getting a little hotter on the wide receivers there. Obviously that threw a bunch of cold water on the whole situation. But how do you feel about the New Orleans run game?
Oh, I'm just staying away completely. Except for, honestly, at this point, I think Kamara's my favorite. I think.
Thank you. I was gonna follow up with a question about him, because he had 5.4 in standard scoring today. Is this a guy that you're gonna? You can buy low on him right now. Is this a guy you think could possibly work his way up the chain and take the majority away from Ingram and Peterson?
Honestly, I think he could start to do something. Ingram did score more than him this week, but it's just something. There's something about Mark Ingram that Sean Payton doesn't seem to like. Even today, 8 carries for 52 yards. That's pretty solid. But he only had 8 carries. There's something about Ingram that you just know for some reason. He's only had 14 carries on the year. And he's done good with that work, but you just know that I think Payton wants to use somebody else there. He wouldn't have brought in Peterson. He wouldn't have drafted Kamara. I don't know what it is, but there's just too much going on that he wants somebody else to do this, and I think it's going to be Kamara, who is kind of in that pass-catching role right now, but that's going to get him – he's going to keep getting more value, I think, if he starts getting some of the carries. He's just been doing it right now off pass-catching, but I could see him getting more and more carries here, and I don't think they're going to increase Ingram's. And Peterson, I think, is already off the wrong foot with Sean Payton as well, so it's a weird situation. I think Kamara could be the one to emerge from it.
Yeah, and I'm getting the same feeling. It's hard to see a world where Ingram and Peterson completely get forgotten because they're giving those guys a ton of money and they're very good. Yep. But at the same time, having the defense so bad right now, that they're going to have to throw a lot. And like you said, Kamara's in that pass-catching role. So he got 7 targets compared to Ingram's 5.
Yep.
And Peterson pretty much doesn't get any. And with those, when he did catch the 3 he turned it into 51 yards compared to Mark Ingram, who had 4, turned it into 24. So I think Payton's going to see him as a true weapon he can use. I just have this feeling that he's going to start implementing him more and more and more. And I think he's just going to turn into like pretty much an every third down back kind of guy. And I think he'll start stealing carries as well. Like you said, I don't know. I think the sky's the limit if he continues to perform like he has, because the guy looks athletic as all heck.
Yeah, I really like him a lot, and I just like to see him get more work here. I don't see for some reason it's going to happen with Ingram. So I think I like to see it with Kamara. All right, some other guys we should probably just mention that we skipped over earlier, just to, people kind of forget about him for something. Carlos Hyde, 15 carries, 124 yards, solid game against Seattle at Seattle.
He looked great.
He does.
Yeah, he really did look great.
I think we've always been a lot higher in Hyde than most, and it's because he's a good player. If they give him the work.
Yeah. I mean, his injuries are the only reason that he got downgraded on a lot of our lists. So if he stays healthy, he's going to be wonderful. I mean, to do that against Seattle, too, is no small feat. I mean, it was a really low-scoring game, but 124 yards against them is really, really positive sign.
Another guy, one last guy we should mention here is Chris Carson from Seattle, who's, I think, is their lead back right now, which didn't quite see this one coming.
Dear God, Seattle.
20 carries. You only get 93 yards out of it. Respectable. And they didn't even have Eddie Lacy active for the game. I mean, he just got off on the wrong foot with them. There's something that's just not working out with Lacy. We could see that last week, which is just surprising to me. And Rawls came back and only got 5 carries. That's it. It was all Chris Carson. Man, I don't know where this one came from. We did talk about Carson a couple weeks ago, but I thought it was just kind of I didn't think it was going to be anything, honestly. At the best, I thought there was going to be like a 4-headed backfield, but somehow Carson has taken over all the work. Just crazy to me.
Yeah, I tell you the truth, I don't really know which way is up at this point in the Seattle backfield. So, I mean, it's one of those I'm probably staying away from, but I know Carson is going to be, once again, he's going to be another waiver guy.
He might be he could be the top this week. It's going to be close, but if you get a guy who's going to get 20 carries.
Is looking good, so why not?
And then how about some injuries here? We talked about a bunch of them already, mainly the more minor ones that we just don't know. I mean, they could be minor. We just don't have any idea severity yet, but some other ones. Corey Coleman had a broken hand, so basically the same injury he had last year. He's going to be out.
Yeah, that's a bummer, too. I mean, talk about another hit to the Browns. I thought the guy was in line for a big uptick, and then he gets hit with this. So it's just unfortunate.
And Greg Olsen, broken foot. This is a guy who never misses anything, and now he's going to be out for a little while here. So that's a hit to the already struggling Carolina offense. So that's not going to help. Not at all. We talk about Jordy. We don't really know anything yet. Randall Cobb, we don't know anything. All these other guys, we don't know a thing. I mean, any other major ones I'm missing here? I probably am.
No, I think the majority of the ones that I heard about throughout the day were, they came back into the game and they played, blah, blah, blah. Yep. So the big one are those two. I mean, they're definitely going to miss a bunch of time. We think we talked a little bit. Rob Kelly. Yeah. It's like he has a rib injury, so that could be a little bit. So, and then we could say Jordan Reed got hurt during the game and came back. Is that a surprise? Not the hurt part, but I'm surprised he came back. Usually when he gets hurt, he's out for 3 weeks. So
that is true. But all right, that's about all the injuries I got. So
yeah, no more injuries. But I do have to say, I mean, also because we finally got to see the Dolphins play. Anyone that was wondering about Ajayi, he looked legit once again. And 28 carries. Give me a break.
We saw a couple workhorse backs this week, which we don't see him that often, but 28 carries from Ajayi. I mean, Bell we knew he had 27 carries. C.J. Anderson, 25 carries. We talked about Perine had 21 carries, which is ridiculous. And Chris Carson with 20. So it's good to see these guys actually getting a lot of carries. I mean, even Gillislee. We didn't talk about Gillislee at all. He had 18 carries, which is...
Yeah, that is really good to see because that guy is going to get touchdowns. If he gets a lot of work, it is. He's going to keep getting them. So I'm just going to ride that guy as a touchdown vulture for the rest of the year. I have no problem with that. Yep. What Blount, he should have tried to stay in town for sure. I'm sure he did, but
I think they knew what I know. He's a terrible running back. So.
And Frank Gore, even though the Colts sucked, he was able to get into the end zone and salvage a day for himself.
That guy just keeps being
it does.
He's just going to continue to be a running back too. It's never going to fail. It's just he does it somehow every time. All right, but I think that's all we got for this one, Jeff. Unless nothing else here. I think we covered pretty much everything again. But it wasn't like a crazy offensive week again. You know what I mean? Just kind of feels like there's more to come.
And I think it definitely was starting to pick up.
Yep.
You're starting to see people do better, and especially the quarterback situation kind of got back to normal, and I think that helped everyone else out. But it's like we said, the picture is becoming a little bit clearer.
Yep.
And it's not looking good for a few of these guys, but there's a few guys that really stuck out this week that might turn into something. So it's going to be really, really interesting. Especially waivers this week, and you can hear all about that in our next podcast.
Yep. Yeah, and I think after week 3, it's like, well, I'll feel comfortable that saying that I know a lot, but actually, who knows? It'll probably be completely different, and it'll change every opinion I had, and I'll still know nothing probably after next week. So,
right.
The only thing left is tomorrow night. We'll see if Odell plays. Hopefully he plays. I'm hoping to see him out there against the Lions. So. That's about the only thing left, people. Hopefully you don't have to make that decision. But if you do, if Odell doesn't play, maybe go pick up, Roger Lewis off the waivers if you need a last-second fill-in, if Odell ends up being a scratch. But if he's playing, you're playing him. So I'm hoping he's playing. I don't want to have to play Brandon Marshall. Not looking forward to that. So, I don't think anybody is. But all right, we'll be back with the waiver episode. And on Tuesday, we'll talk to you guys then.